Welcome to the Finding Union podcast. This is a co-creation of divine guidance, ineffable intelligence, and the human identities of the bringers of change to activate a remembering within humanity with the information shared. The topics and the words spoken in these episodes will allow for the activation within each individual to create a deeper connection with others, self, and ultimately Creator. Bringing new perspectives, this podcast will trigger a greater understanding to what the human experience's purpose is. As you continue to listen to these conversations, you will be activated into purging the falsities of your mind, allowing your identity to dissolve, bringing more authenticity into your daily life. Here you will receive universal downloads, consciousness, and a place of remembering the true love of unconditional source connection. Thank you from all spaces throughout the universe for allowing yourself to connect deeply with the information being shared. Here is your host, Conduit of Universal Truth, Danielle Butler.
Hi everyone, I have a very special person that I'd like to introduce and have a chat with today. Transcendence to the Truth Managing Director, the Masculine Mind Coach, Tantric Kundalini Massage Therapist, Special Intimacy Coach, Access Bars Practitioner, Medium to the Heavens and the Universe, Danielle Butler. Welcome. So good to finally talk to you on this level.
Really actually super grateful for you taking the time to do this and to create this conversation from a different perspective, because I'm normally the one doing these interviews, and so it's interesting being on the opposite end. And I'm so grateful for your time, energy, and our relationship in this human experience.
Yeah, well, human experience it is. Technology, everything that we're doing these days always has an impact on our lives and how it's influencing us. So that's, I guess, what we're going to talk about today. First of all, let's go back to basics. And obviously your clients know who you are, but people from my perspective don't really know you that well. So how did all this come about?
How do you put something that is so vastly huge into a small, condensed piece of information? I think to sum it up really shortly would be that me, like many other individuals on this planet, I've experienced a lot of adversity, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of trauma, a lot of limiting beliefs about myself. And it became too much that it manifested in my external reality and my internal body in my vessel. And it became too painful that I guess I broke down at one point where that pain and that suffering just became too much. And I had no idea how to get out of it, no idea how to shift into something else. But I did feel that life wasn't supposed to be that way, that there was a different possibility. And I was crying on the kitchen floor after one of the many cries and breakdowns after my marriage had broken down, and I was recovering from a chronic illness. And I looked up at the sky and I basically said, if life is this way, I don't want to live this way, and get me to the fastest possible way to consciousness as you can. And I mean, in hindsight, I don't recommend maybe doing it the fastest possible way because
I hear you there.
It's definitely brought up a lot very quickly to move through and release. And I mean, in saying that, there's no right or wrong way to each individual's journey, and we are all unique. And I think that's the beauty of these conversations, is you can start to share your journey and people will relate, And then it strips back their own judgments of their own journey, because they're like, oh, I feel that, I was that. And it helps to remove the false thoughts that we have in our minds towards ourselves and our experience. So in short, it was this podcast and these conversations that are being created for higher universal understanding of consciousness have come out of my own journey to remove suffering, and no other than my own. And it's interesting when you start to understand self and get rid of the idea of I am my identity, then you start to see that I am you and you are me. And so what serves me serves everybody.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'll add to that just a little. Obviously, people don't know the relationship between us. And obviously, I was a client. I came in as a client, and basically same sort of thing. Was misguided, very confused about the world, didn't want to be a participant anymore. Had to change, knew I had to change pretty much everything about my life. So the guidance that you gave as a man's coach there was just huge, and it put me back on track. It got me to where I need to be. Obviously now I'm doing a double degree, so things are nice and busy, plus with the beautiful you, it's a full-time gig. So I appreciate everything that you've done for me as well. So I'll lay that on the line right up front. So obviously it did, the experience for you did trigger healing for yourself, and obviously a lot of healing. And tell me a little bit about what healing does and the lifespan of that. Does healing just end? Do you heal, or is it continuous?
So I think if you had have asked me that question a couple of months ago, I would have had a different answer. I would have said the journey is continual and we're always healing, we're always learning. And the whole point of this specific podcast, which is called Finding Union, which when it first came through for me, it was about finding union inwardly, but ultimately because I had an external driver. I wanted it to find union in a partner. So it was like, yeah, okay, the more I heal myself, the more I'm open to receiving that partner. But it wasn't really for myself. It wasn't really for the connection with Creator. There was still this egoic mindset there. So during that phase of my experience, I got caught up in all of the beliefs. You know, we live in a world of believers. We live in a world of people that have a belief system on this, and this. But
limitations, so like the yin and the yang, and right and wrong, good and bad, duality.
Yeah. And all of our belief systems have elements to that, to the polarity. And what I have found to be true, and the more that I step into channeling high frequencies and vibrational information from multidimensional realms, the information that I'm sitting with in my heart and I know is truth, because truth is something that is felt. It's not something that you can conceptualize in your mind. And when I started to feel these things, it was like, there is actually an end point. And whether or not you see it as an end point, it's more that we can come into self-union. We don't have to go into masculine, feminine, and continue that divide. We don't have to go into the right and wrong. We can be at peace with all things in the present moment in God realization. Now, there are humans that have, I guess, experienced this and shown up in the world in that way. And I mean, Jesus is just one example of that, where there's been a God realization and a standing in the potential of what this human experience can actually bring. So for me, it's actually been a big part lately of really fine-tuning the beliefs that are causing some level of separation, like in the mind of, of judgment or a conclusion, or am I holding on to past things where I could just surrender it to God? Like I could just surrender, or as Gary Button says, let it go. and that's the thing, right? So this is so funny, because how many times I've heard your voice in my head in the last 2 months.
It's still true. It's still true. And all my clients say the same thing. Yeah, they resonate to, oh, I have to let it go. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the issue is that our brain has been designed so complex that we make everything complicated, and we want to understand everything, and we want to like dissect everything. And you can grow that way, and you can heal that way, because you get, you question yourself, and you reflect, and you go into self-analyzation, and that's where self-actualization comes from. But there's also an easier way, and it's the way of just being present with what is, no resistance, no judgment, and just surrender, let it go. And for me, being such a mind manipulator and I guess an over-analyzer, if you want to say that, I don't know if you can over-analyze, but spend a lot of time in what one of my old mentors calls mind masturbation.
There you go. And it sounds true.
Yeah. So you get, I guess it's another form of distraction, because
it's enjoyable, because you're in this moment that your mind is telling you what's going on, and your ego is talking out loud. So it's full of belief. And if you choose, you go with the flow, rather than actually surrendering it and letting it go and just being in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And so I believe we can come into a space of healing and higher consciousness union. And it's the willingness to let go of the stories and the narratives. And when we let go of those things, because when you sit here in your heart in presence, there's actually no stories. The mind does, like, it actually eases and stops, and you can just observe what's here. You have, I guess, what would be awareness, which is thought in an interpretation. But your awareness is, you're aware of, oh, okay, because I'm not in my head, I can see that little Johnny over there is like struggling with those blocks, and he might need me to give him a little bit of encouragement or a different perspective. And then you can see that you energetically can pick up on different people and where they're at, and then you can feel your own body, because you're there, you're in your body rather than being in your mind. And that's what heaven on earth is for me. So
it's the mental motivation, or the mental motor skills that you're developing. So you're developing, like we develop our hands as a child, and we learn the coordination between the brain and the hands. So do we learn the connection between the brain and the spirit. So for me, for one, I find that the connection there is always being massaged and always being continually altered in some sort of way, because your ego and your mind want to automatically go into protector mode, or they want to go into a design of, hey, I'm the power here, you're not the power. There's so many different ways and so many different reasons, and I'm sure many of the listeners out there or viewers out there would see and feel the same, that they've had situations where their mind, or they work it out that they're just not connected, and it's an ego thing. So as soon as we realize that the ego is working, not the spirit, then we've got a chance to correct. But until then, it's a difficult trigger. So Danielle, yeah.
Can I extrapolate onto that?
Please do.
This is the piece that's really important, I think, for anyone, wherever they are on their journey, because the subtleties, you're fine-tuning that balance point. You're noticing where ego plays out. So pretty much in any moment, you've got a choice of union or connection with God, creator, universe, self, in wholeness or love, oneness, or you have separation. So anytime that you're in an egoic thought of mind or story, you're in separation, which means you're in self-abandonment. So all of the suffering, literally every single individual person's suffering that they're experiencing is due to them pulling away from themselves in some form of unworthiness, unlovable, I'm not good enough story, which the true core wounding, like we can talk about our human experience and, you know, our family and our experience with our childhood upbringing and all of that, but that's just this lifetime, right? Then you've got, we're living on a planet that has been conditioned this way for millions of years. So you've got a collective consciousness that has these specific thought forms. And then you also have karmic ancestral things that come in through your physical DNA. So you've got so much story.
Absolutely.
But when you break down that story, because it doesn't matter the story, right? It really doesn't. The story is just a story. It's something that our minds like to attach to make sense of why we're feeling a certain way. The true core, the only real wound, when you take away every single story in all lifetimes and go right back, is the one where God created us as a separate creation. And in that, there is both ends of polarity, because there's a sense of freedom and love of, oh, yay, I can be my own individual creation. I can go and experience in the universe. And this is amazing. What a gift. And then there's the other side, which is what the entire universe is made up of, is positive and negative feedback of, but you don't love me. You left me. You've abandoned me, right? So this is the one core wounding. And it's just coming out in so many different ways. And the only way to heal that core wound is to see it was a gift. And in that gift, we weren't abandoned, and acknowledge those things. Acknowledge that the separateness is wholeness at the same time.
Well, we're not talking duality. So it's oneness. And basically there's no limits. It just is, just like the universe itself. I guess from there, Danielle, the part of your journey to get to where you've been, obviously, is you've done a lot of healing for yourself and your clients as well. So I want to go and check out daniellebutler.com. Run me through the experience for that as a client of Danielle. How do I feel in those moments? Well, how do I approach you?
So the work that I'm doing currently at this present moment is up until probably the last 6 weeks, I've primarily worked with men. And I've worked with men in the masculine mindset. And in that space, you learn masculine and feminine, because we as individuals hold both energies, and that's what creates that oneness. And the reason that I had been drawn so much to working with men is because of this false it was a false identity wrapped in excessive masculine energy. So to protect myself and to feel safe in this life, I had put a lot of energy into my masculine identity that was basically keeping walls and barriers up in a protection from being hurt again. And in trying to heal myself, I was attracted to understanding the masculine energy. And then to understand the masculine, you have to also understand the feminine, and realize that my whole life I've had someone in their excessive feminine, and I'd sort of been in my excessive masculine, which is where you can look at the mirror effect, and everyone's a mirror of what we still have to heal within. So there was this beautiful mirroring happening that I was completely unaware of. And it has helped me as a woman in this reality understand men. Also because I understand, I've learned to understand my own feminine energy, so I can see how men have been wounded with our collective conditioning and not feeling safe to be vulnerable or express, or when they have, they've been put down and called wimps or simps, and man,
more judgment, more labels.
Yeah, and how much, how damaging that is, and it's a huge topic, like it's massive. So but in that process of trying to heal my own wounding, I've been able to, I guess, love and appreciate the physical masculine, the males in our experience, and release the resentment and the anger and the pain that I had for being at the abuse of that, and understanding that hurt people. And when you're hurting inside, and it doesn't matter what degree, and I'm not justifying anyone's behavior, but to add a greater understanding so you can have compassion for why people do what they do.
Interesting topic. We'll talk about that more in a second, actually.
Yeah, is that allowing yourself to see in a greater perspective and a broader worldview that everyone is hurting, and everyone really is doing the best that they can do at the awareness and the consciousness level that they have. And when you can see that, you can have compassion for yourself, a lot more compassion for yourself, and you can be like, it's okay, I know you're doing the best you can right now.
It's okay, here's a shoulder.
And you can have compassion for your past.
Yeah.
And you can let a lot of it go too. That's where the freedom comes in, of letting things go. Were you going to say something?
Beautiful moment with study. Yeah, I had a beautiful moment with study the other day, and then we'll move on to the point where we were given a policy that we have to review, and it's a government policy. Basically, done the review, and I'm trying to do all my references for it and find some positive feedback on it, and I couldn't find any. In fact, all I could find was derogatory stuff and racist statements and all of this sort of stuff, and it's obviously something. See, once again, it's an egoic thing from someone's point of view. So there's so many things that can trigger ego and emotions that guide us, our ego. So obviously that's where the let it go comes from. That's where we really do need to just say, hey, enough's enough. I need to accept this and move on. So that's the most important thing. One of the things before we, so basically I was really taken aback, and I thought, oh, I found wrong information. What have I discovered here? And I'm sitting there going, no, I'm wrong. I can't be, there's no way that they would give us this policy to set us up for this. But it's exactly what happens. They want us to find the truth and explore the truth. And I got that confirmed when the professor sent out a news story a couple of days ago, confirming it to its entirety. So I was
Ah,
very, it was almost, for me, it was like, aha, that's the aha moment we have. So on a spiritual line, it's very similar. And that's what I wanted to point out,
yeah.
was the fact that we all have these aha moments, and those aha moments are when we actually go, that's where I need to be. And you realize that's
Yeah, 100%. And I think moving like that leads back into some of the other work that I do is that
correct.
um, though when we gain awareness and by exploring through our own body's messages and what sits with our mind and what feels and resonates as truth with discernment, we can be told a certain story and a narrative, and when you start to question and open your mind, you're like, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right. Like, and if it's called, I think one of the most beautiful things and the simplest tool is if it feels heavy in your body, if there's something that's tight, if there's like tension, if in any experience in life, then there's lies attached to it. So it's not the truth in its entirety. There is something that is misguiding and misled and not being seen properly. And that's why that tension is there. And so to explain what I do when it comes to the physical body, because I do a lot of exploring these beliefs, because
Absolutely.
a thought creates an energetic frequency and vibration. That frequency and vibration is interpreted by our physical body as a feeling or an emotion. So that when we're thinking negative thoughts about ourselves, it's causing a lower frequency and vibration, not a bad thing. It's just something that is contracting us so much that it's pulling us away from the expansiveness of all that is. So it's not that we're not there, because we're always connected to Creator and our existence and all that is. It's just that we don't feel it and we don't recognize it, and we're so stuck over here that we don't actually get it. So when we've spent a lot of time in contraction or fight, flight, freeze, or a trauma response, our energetic field gets clogged up, basically with balls of low frequencies that don't vibrate right, and they stagnate. And what happens is, because we are not taught how to clear our energy field, which is something that we should be learning like walking, is we build up and we absorb all this energy. And that's when we start because we attach to thoughts and beliefs, and so that turns into an overwhelm of energy. And so that's when people say, I feel like the world's on my shoulders. I just feel really heavy and depressed. Like all of those feelings are because you've got so much shit that isn't yours, probably most of it, and it just needs to be released. So that's the beauty of energy work. Energy work allows you to go into a place of receiving, to clear and transmute the stuff that's not serving you.
Which is a fantastic thing, because you and I both agree that one of the best tools that I've found for this is access bars. Now, personally, it's my favorite because it's just the duck's nuts, I call it. It's just the duck's nuts. It's funny. I was with a client last night, and I was doing her bars, and it's funny because I do describe it to people. They say, how does it feel? And I say, well, you feel the energy because we take the energy through us from their body, and they let it go. So it's just coming through us, but you can feel those blockages, and you can feel it. And the way I explain it to people is, picture a nice pretty stream of water flowing down a creek, and then picture a rock in the middle of it, and you can see the little eddies around it and the little flow around it, and that's these energy blockages. And that's how I describe it to people. And I feel that, and when I feel that, I say, well, hey, are you ready to surrender something? Are you wanting to surrender something here, or is there something you need to do some more work on, or whatever? And that's amazing. So that's how we feel it, the energy, and you feel that in the flow. Recently, I've started seeing colors, which is also awesome. But yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing, right? So as we strip back this excess of energy and thought, and you can't do one without the other. So you can't just go and see a healer. You can't go see a healer every week and not look at your mind. And you can't just do mindset work and not look at the past residual energy blockages within the body. It's an incorporation of both. And that's when you'll really see things shift. Because the physical body takes a while to catch up to the mind.
Obviously it does. It takes me. Look, I'm still catching up, and it's been what, 7 or so years now.
Yeah. And if you think about it as an energetic thing, it stores. So even the energy that's stored in the body holds that thought form or that belief or that emotion. So as you release it, and people, like, I remember when I first started doing energy work, all I felt was like this warmness on my fingertips. Like I was like, I'm like, that's just me touching someone else's head. Like, of course it's going to be warm, but like, I didn't feel anything really. But then when I would get my bars run, because bars was the first modality that I professionally did, I would get up, I would fall asleep straight away. There was so much unconsciousness that needed to be discharged. I couldn't even stay awake. I was like, whoa. And then I would always wake up right at the last point. And it was like awakening from the heaviness. But I just practiced doing energy work, and I spent a lot of time devoting myself to that. Just like anything, it takes time to learn a skill. It takes time to reprogram your mind. It's not a let's get up in the morning and do our gratitude journal and put some intentions out and then go back into matrix life thinking. It's every single moment of, am I centered and aware in my body? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? And having this constant space of being aware, which is a moment by moment journey.
It is a moment by moment journey. You're very correct.
Yeah. And these energy shifts, and so like 100% feel if like you're at a place in your journey where you're feeling a bit stuck, to get like a reboot or a clearing, because it's like a control alt delete on, access bars specifically is a control alt delete on the mind. So that really brings space into the mind. It's working specifically in that space, so it can create more awareness. Then you've got bodywork practitioners that work on the body and removing blockages from the body, which are also connected to thought. But you're going to get different effects from different healings. And if you're an overthinker, access bars.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was an overthinker. Yeah. And yeah, so I used to analyze every little thing that came in. I was a professional manager. So, hey, we analyze things, we check things out, we make sure we got redundancies and double redundancies, and make sure that everything's got a place, and that everyone's got their marks and cues, and all of that sort of stuff has to happen. When in actual fact, it's micromanaging the mind, and you don't have to do that. So from a professional point of view, one thing I would like to hit on is the journey and just the people that are awakening. I mean, it's a tough thing. One thing that I do rebuke with a lot of people is that, oh, I'm spiritual now, I've woken up and it's going to be awesome and it's just open to me, and oh, my life is going to be so nice. And it's true, your life is going to be so nice. But let's be honest and describe some of the conflicts with the internal issues, the healing, the past matters. And this is what you've been talking about all the way along here to get to where you are. So some people with their L plates on, so to speak, let's step us through just an initial process of awakening.
I saw this really hilarious TikTok the other day, actually, where it was showing a couple of stages of awakening. And the initial one is when you first wake up and you're like, everything's love and light. And you get this like superiority complex, like I've found the answers and you guys don't know anything. And I mean, that's true, right? When you awaken, you're like, oh my God, the universe is amazing. And I have to think, and I remember, I call it if you look at the Hawkins level of consciousness, it actually gives you a good understanding, I guess, of that. And it's kind of like the frequency of love. You come into this frequency of love where you're like, I love everything and everyone.
It's beautiful.
And
the trees are green, the grass is beautiful, the sky is blue, the world is lovely.
It's also super unrealistic. At least at that point, because what happens is you've kind of just gone from one point in your mind where everything was perceived as, I guess, more negative, and then you flipped into this more positive mindset, and then you have to integrate these things together. So as when you might awaken through a lot of shit, which is usually what a lot of people do, is
it's usually triggered by a trauma or an event or a major emotional issue, or
and most people, it will be either a marriage breakdown, illness, or they'll lose their business or some form of that, or all three,
all of it.
Yeah, it's a complete crumbling of the reality that they were living in. So, and when that happens, that's pretty scary, because you're like, oh, I don't have my relationship, I don't have my business, I'm not well, I've lost all my friends, I've moved towns. So it might, and you basically end up with a clean slate. And the thing is that because it's still so new, this thinking, you kind of don't see it as, oh, this is just like the rebirth, right? It's like getting rid of all that stuff that wasn't serving me, and now I can like find out who I truly am. This is like this. So the what they call the dark night of the soul is kind of where you first awaken to the possibility of creator, and you're like, oh, okay. But the resistance to being in actually what that is where all of the shedding happens, and we fight against it, because we're like, no, I can't let go of you, and I can't let go of you, and I can't let go of this, and that's where the suffering happens. So
it's like, you keep going. Well, I was about to say that one of the parables from the actual Bible turns around and creates, and when Jesus' character turns around and says, if you truly follow me, surrender everything and give up everything. So the rich couple decide they're going to follow Jesus, but what they end up doing is hoarding all their wealth and hiding their wealth internal. And of course, God knows everything. And they were damned for it. So you can't fool the system, you can't fool yourself, and surrender and being open to everything does mean exactly that. So
yeah, definitely. And as soon as you like are actually willing to let it go and release the attachment to the relationship, to the job, to the past experiences, that's where the space opens. And one of the beautiful things about the universe and the way the universe works is it doesn't actually like empty spaces. So the only reason that you're going to feel alone, like you don't have friends or you haven't got a partner or whatever, is because you're actually choosing that. On some unconscious level, that's what's happening. You're choosing to hold on to that friendship that, you had for 20 years and then suddenly dissolved, and you just like miss them so much. Unless you get to a place of acceptance and really truly accept, oh, okay, they were there for this part of my journey and they taught me this and it was amazing, and I lovingly let them go, because now there's new experiences to be had in my life. And that's a part of growth. That's a part of self-union, is that if you're not actually remembering the truth of who you are, you will have the same friends that you had when you were 5 because you're actually not shifting your consciousness level.
Eat, sleep, repeat.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that like if you've had a marriage for 50 years that you're not growing. I would also question it, because I believe question everything. But there are people that grow together, or they've come to a place, which is magical and very rare, where there's a complete no judgment and acceptance for each people individually at where they're at, and they don't project onto each other, which means they can stay in union together.
I found the other cycle was that one person is ready to surrender and the other person is still willing to hold on. And that was me. I was holding on to the remnants of what was going on. And I was probably 2 or 3 years out of cycle with my partner. And having said that, we've grown totally different directions now. But still respect each other in the same old way, although I get called the dirty old hippie now. So I'm happy with that because I wear my baggy pants and all of that sort of stuff. But hey, that's just what happens. So in general, from a perspective of somebody starting my journey, somebody through my journey, or even towards the end, if I'm having any sort of conditioning issues, blockages, all that sort of stuff, I reach out to a healer, right? So that's what we do. That's how we help people. We can identify these things and help them move on from that, or welcome them to accept it and move on. We're not really healers. We are definitely, and I don't really like that word anymore because I feel that, oh, no, I'm not healing. You're healing yourself. I'm just providing situations and the narrative for you to do it yourself. So
yeah, 100%. And that's I guess a part of where I guess this, after you awaken and everything's all love and light, then the real stuff starts to show up, because you start to see the stories, you start to see the mirrors in your life, you start to notice your shadow parts, and where, because you're in a place of no judgment, but you're actually judging everything still, you start to realize where you're judging. And if you're judging something externally, it's because there's some part of yourself that is fragmented in your soul that you need to lovingly bring back in and take as one. So I forgot what your last bit was about. It was leading into this. But the fragmented parts of self is I guess the shadow work, and the shadow work part of the journey is pretty uncomfortable, because I guess in truth, when you sit in the unknown, or when you sit in areas that you're not used to, that's uncomfortable, and it can bring up things to be released. For me, the more that I've seen different parts and I'm willing to look at it, then it shifts very, very quickly. So it's just seeing it and acknowledging whatever that is. I don't have to go into the depths of it. Like, this is, I think, a misconception around healing as well, is when you see, oh yeah, okay, I've been doing that. You don't have to go, oh, I was doing that, I'm such a bad person, and there's all this shame and guilt. Yeah. So it's just, I'm doing that, and now I can see it, and I no longer choose to do that, because I can see that it has had this effect on myself and others, and I that doesn't feel true for me anymore. And I give that up, and just give it up. And I mean, at times there are some programs that will keep showing up, and it's usually because there's a part of you that really doesn't want to let it go. There's some reason there that you're holding on to it, and so that part of healing is can be icky.
It can be icky.
It can be pretty icky, like seeing the unconsciousness of yourself. And where I had a client yesterday that was sharing with me that she had this guy ghost her, and how painful that was. And then what she started to see was, she's like, oh, I actually do that. She's like, I've done that, and I do that to people, just in a different way.
Absolutely.
And so when you see those things, one of the biggest ones for me ever, and I still like just remember it so clearly, was when I got told I was a liar. And I was like, I was so angry at first, because that's what happens,
I wasn't
right?
lying.
Well, the trigger creates the feeling and the resistance, and I was really wanting to be aware, like I really did want that. So I was like, I went into all the anger and justification, and then I was like, hang on, okay, instead of going into that, how can you please explain how I am a liar? Like, I would like to have a better understanding of why you would see me that way. And that's why asking a question can completely change your reality, because you haven't gone into a conclusion and all the story, and it can really open up to things that you don't see yourself the way others see you. But what he said to me was life-changing, because it showed me many, many parts of myself, not just one. And it was that I would not specifically lie, so I could tell myself I wasn't a liar, but I would dance around the truth and tell half truths and manipulate an idea of what something was, so that I wouldn't hurt someone. So I avoided the uncomfortable feelings of being honest and possibly hurting someone's feelings, which over time ended up hurting everyone's feelings, because I didn't have enough, I guess, guts in myself to be really truthful and own my behavior and own how my behavior is received. And so that was huge for me. And I believe in ownership as if this is a part of your path and you've awakened to your own self-realization journey, and you want that level of union within and without, with all that is, ownership. And if you don't own your reality, then you got no hope.
And that is true. That is true. So your reality is your own. We all have our own experience and our own reality. So your reality is different to mine. And even though we walk parallel paths or similar paths through our journey, there's differences, and it's our reality and our perception. So I see a turquoise, you might see a blue or a green or whatever. So yeah, it's really important. The other thing I really wanted to touch on today, and I know we're running low on time, big time, but one of the other things I really wanted to touch on was, okay, we've worked on self. We're ready to be ourselves, and we are practicing being ourselves, and we're happy in that environment. We love ourselves, and we've still got healing to do, because we've always got healing to do. We've mentioned that. One of the really big important things for me now is I'm emitting, and people are coming to me, partners, prospective partners, other people coming into my life that could be a romantic issue, or we've been long-time partners and we have melded together, like you said before, that we've identified together and we're moving forward with that. But it still leaves us a lack of a spiritual gathering experience together. And I know that one of the things is the intimacy question, and obviously the sexual question. The experience of a true spiritual sexual experience is just mind-blowing. It's awesome. It is awesome. We all agree with that. Which leads me to one of your other practices, which is the Kundalini side of things and Tantric, which is awesome. Can you just tell us a little bit about the union of that with partners?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of people have a Kundalini awakening by accident. It's usually something that happens in some form of meditation, or it's a random spontaneous event. There's a lot of misconceptions around the Kundalini energy, and that's some say it's from the devil and that it's an evil snake that lives in the body and it's an entity. And I mean, if you just feel into yourself when I say those things and feel into your own body's messages, to me, where I sit, I understand that there's anything that's really close to the truth has been distorted, and there's fear wrapped in it so that we are suppressed
Absolutely.
from our own potency and life force. And it's scary. I'm not saying that it's not a scary experience, especially if you don't know what's going on. If you've never heard of Kundalini before and you have a Kundalini awakening like I did, then you are like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? and it triggers fear, a lot of fear. I thought my internal spirit was going to spin out of my body and I was going to be lost in the abyss. So that was terrifying, especially when I was so new. I hadn't even really awakened at that point. And maybe that was the trigger of my awakening, if I look at it. It was definitely around that space. But the Kundalini energy is life force. It's our potency. And if we think about life force is creation. Creation is your sexual energy. And when your sexual energy is what creates physical life, right? You have babies that way. But creation is God, is creator. We're the creations. So it's literally the life force of all that is. It is the energy of everything encompassed. And so when you tap into that, that's really powerful. Like, it's really strong. And this is where I guess the sexual side of things gets a little bit
misconceived. Misconstrued.
Because we think that sexual energy is just this portion. And sexual energy is our life force energy as well. Like, it isn't just, you can have orgasm. So if you think of sexual energy as the orgasmic, passionate juiciness, the zesty, like fun, playful seductiveness of life, then you can start to see that what we're only experiencing this tiny portion of our lives, and we're so addicted to, many of us, is having this little hit of that can be brought into every experience when we start to tap in and allow that energy to flow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the Kundalini is like used to, men do a lot of practices like semen retention or celibacy, so they can start to bring their life force up. Men and women are designed differently in this solid reality. And for a man, just very briefly, it is beneficial for them to do semen retention. Doesn't mean you have to be abstinence from sex. The reason for that is that excessive ejaculation actually increases estrogen levels. So
correct, yes.
It's an imbalance of a man's purpose and his all his life force energy, whereas women actually have a kind of opposite. It's amazing for them to have multiple orgasms and to release physically, because that's an energetic, it's an energetic clearing. So the masculine and feminine bodies, when they work together, and you've got this penetration of purpose and this receiving and clearing energy, it circulates. So this is like where the wholeness and the oneness and the energetic can come through. Now, to have that with a partner means safety. It means surrender for both parties. It means
big time.
Coming into your heart, opening, and allowing that energy to actually move through intimacy. And intimacy is like energy, it's smelling, it's touching, it's softness, it's allowing yourself to feel pleasure. Because a lot of the people that I help with the Kundalini Awakening, and I'm actually going to be doing a workshop today to help activate in a completely different way. So is that we have the belief that we don't deserve that much pleasure and goodness. So what happens is when you feel that beautiful and amazing expansion is you want to pull away from it.
This isn't right. This is got to be bad. It's too good. It's got to be bad.
Yeah.
But it's actually a light force that's in us as natural. So yeah.
Every single one of us. And
Absolutely.
It's so potent and it's an amazing gift. And if you can even start to bring that into your own self, then you hopefully will open yourself to receiving someone that you can have those experiences with.
Always, Daniel, I love you so much. We've got an amazing friendship and kinship that is just second to none. I love you. I miss you so much, being thousands or 1,000 kilometers away now, but we're still together. We're still souls, and we still see each other and see each other on the planes, etc. Thank you for your time today. It's been an awesome experience, and obviously, look, we could chat like this forever, and yeah, we could just do this forever. But obviously, we've got to go and do other things. So good luck today with the class, with the workshop, and thank you so much for your time. DanielButler.com, everyone. I'm sure you're going to see in the titles of this. We'll have it there somewhere. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful person, beautiful educator and guide for everything that can put you through life. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for your time and allowing the space and the container to create this for the first episode of the Finding Union podcast.
Excellent. And we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you. I love you.
Stay beautiful, you.